Today on Eye on Northwest Politics, the fight for District 6. Democrat Carrick Flynn and Republican Mike Erickson, two of the candidates battling for Oregon's new 6th Congressional District. We sit down with both of them in back-to-back interviews. Plus, is it time to make moves on the I-5 Rose Quarter project? Why one Portlander says the time is now. And big bucks, Nike's Phil Knight dropping 7 figures to one candidate for Oregon governor. We'll tell you who. Eye on Northwest Politics starts now. Thanks for joining us. This is Eye on Northwest Politics. I'm Ken Bawdy. Let's get right to your top political headlines. Nike founder Phil Knight donated $750,000 to Betsy Johnson's campaign for Oregon governor. Johnson resigned as an Oregon state senator to run as an unaffiliated candidate. So far, Knight has donated a total of $1 million to Betsy Johnson's campaign. A potential ballot initiative is sparking debate when it comes to housing Portlanders. People for Portland, a political action committee, wants 75% of Metro homelessness funds to go towards more shelter beds. But the group Here Together tells us that would eliminate affordable and permanent supportive housing projects. Here Together says more than 1,000 evictions have been prevented since the original initiative passed in 2020. People for Portland says they're calling for this change because they feel not enough has been done with those funds. And Oregon Representative Mike Neerman has completed his community service. Neerman was found guilty of official misconduct for letting right-wing protesters into the state capitol building in December of 2020. According to court documents, he was ordered to serve 80 hours of community service. He is due back in court next week. You may not know the name Carrick Flynn, but you've probably seen the ads promoting his candidacy for Oregon's new 6th Congressional District. A native of Vernonia and a Democrat, Flynn attended Oxford University in England and founded an organization dedicated to issues related to artificial intelligence. He got his law degree from Yale, has a degree in economics from the University of Oregon, and has been on the research faculty at Georgetown University. His website says that he has advised the federal government on technology and pandemic-related issues. Carrick Flynn, welcome to Eye on Northwest Politics.
Thank you so much.
Well, I just ran down some of your background. It seems like you're overqualified for this job, so why do you want to run?
That's very kind. I want to run because I think in some ways a lot of the fundamentals that government functions have been forgotten recently. In particular, strong economy, good jobs, and looking forward for future generations. And that includes preventing disasters and certainly including pandemics, but also things like the wildfires and other things we can expect from climate change. My town, Vernonia, had 2 500-year floods within 12 years. That's not what a 500-year flood means. So I want to get back to the very basics. I would like to get a strong economy. I would like to prevent foreseeable, preventable disasters. And I'd like to ensure that every family has an opportunity to thrive by finding high-paying work with good benefits and the opportunity to get savings. And that also includes, obviously, ensuring that Medicare and Social Security are intact as they should be and as they've been promised to be, to ensure that older people actually get, a stable life after having contributed for their entire life.
Much has been made of the amount of money that you're already spending on ads. You're spending a lot early. And financial support of a cryptocurrency billionaire. His name is Sam Bankman-Fried through the PAC Protect Our Future. Now, what's your response to people who say that you or he are trying to buy a seat in Congress?
So to clarify, I don't have any background in cryptocurrency at all. It's not a topic I know much about. I don't have any policy positions on it. The Protect Our Future PAC, from what I've seen on their website, and actually I think what one of the spokesmen from it said, it's interested in me because of my strong background in pandemic prevention. So I first got involved in pandemic prevention in 2015. This was when I was at Oxford. And I stayed involved up through at the beginning of COVID, at which time I left my job at Georgetown so I could work on it full time. And in that capacity, I was able to author part of Biden's pandemic prevention program and to try and get it passed through Congress. So I do have a strong background in that. To the extent Sam Bankman-Fried is sort of acting like, Elon Musk is a billionaire and he wants to put people in space. Bill Gates is a billionaire and he wants to end malaria. If Sam Bankman-Fried wants to end pandemics, like I'm on board, and I'm very happy to be supported for that.
Yeah, before we move off of this, what's your view on how cryptocurrency should be regulated?
I don't know. I actually don't. If an issue of cryptocurrency came up in Congress, I would do what I would do with other issues where I wasn't very familiar, which is I would research it till I had like a good position. What I would be looking out for is what you normally look out for in financial services regulation, which is making sure that, middle-class people, lower-class people aren't being taken advantage of.
You grew up in Vernonia, and you and your family were caught in those devastating floods of 1996. How has that affected you and your life?
So the floods left us homeless. We were homeless for about 7 months. And I think the experience of that, the vulnerability and the sense of exposure is something that really stuck with me. There's something about the sensation of not having any sort of safety net and falling and just hitting the ground when nothing catches you. That's really scarring or something that stays. And I think because of this, I find it very easy when there's issues and issues of prioritization that I'm able to kind of draw on this reserve to make sure I stay focused on what matters most. So for example, when I was sort of lobbying Congress for Biden's pandemic prevention bill, I would meet with people and they were all, a lot of them were sort of just kind of indifferent to it. And this was during COVID. And I remember one staffer saying like, oh, sure, it's fine. But, do they make this PPE in our district? And I remember thinking like, I know as a fact, you've lost billions of dollars in your district. I know you lost well over 1,000 people in your district. And like, don't get me wrong, like creating jobs is a great thing. I'd like to create jobs. I intend to create jobs. But if you're thinking a few hundred jobs weighs up against, thousands of lives, you're not prioritizing. You've lost track of that really important thread. And I think I'm quite good at not doing that. With the pandemic prevention thing, the reason it's so urgent is 800,000 Americans slowly suffocated to death alone, most of them, without being able to say goodbye to their families. That's as many, it's actually more deaths than all combat deaths in US history. And we're barely a few months out of the worst of the pandemic and we're forgetting about it and we're moving on. And that's not appropriate. This is why I want to get in now and see if we can at least get this stuff down where it's somewhat fresh in people's minds. But I think it's this prioritization that maybe was the gift, or the silver lining I got from that experience.
You've spent a lot of time overseas. Why did you decide to move back to Oregon and specifically run for Congress?
So I spent a lot of time overseas. This was mostly doing poverty eradication work in Africa and Southeast Asia, and I did some health work in India. And this was, again, that feeling of prioritization, just being aware that there's so much need. I then moved to Washington, D.C., where I worked on some projects, actually to reshore semiconductor manufacturing. So it's things like Intel, which if it works, should bring thousands of jobs to Oregon. And then after that, pandemic prevention. So while I was at Georgetown, when COVID hit, we could work from home. And if you can work from home, I'm going to work from home. So I moved back to Oregon because, if I can live anywhere, I'm absolutely going to live in Oregon. And it was doing this, then I left my job and then I started working on the COVID stuff. And then when the seat opened up sort of under me, I had a lot of people telling me I should run. And in the front of my mind was that pandemic prevention bill that just hadn't moved forward yet. It made it into the first version of the infrastructure bill and been stripped out of the second. And it was just it's still in Congress. And it's so important. And I think I was scared of running. It's a lot of exposure. I'm kind of a private person. But it seemed too important to not just put everything into it.
You're promoting a green economy. We have about a minute left.
Okay.
I'm just thinking of President Biden releasing that 1 million barrels a day from U.S. oil reserves because of the effects of the war in Ukraine. What do you think about that?
I'm obviously very sympathetic to the price of gas. I have to pay for gas too. The strategic oil reserve should actually be for legitimate emergencies. And I'm sorry, I love Biden overall, but I don't think he should have done that. To making it worse, the strategic oil reserve, this is kind of technical. The way it's built, you can't actually withdraw oil from it and then refill it that many times because it's made out of limestone. So every time you do it, you ruin the opportunity to do it later when it matters a lot more. And certainly, as we saw with COVID, we can have amazingly bad disasters where it is absolutely vital. In the meantime, some other form of relief I think might have been more appropriate.
Carrick Flynn, thanks for joining me on Eye on Northwest Politics.
All right, thank you so much.
And we are sticking with the battle for District 6. Up next, Republican Mike Erickson. He's not a stranger in running for office, why he says this time will be the charm. And if you want more Eye on Northwest Politics, head to coin.com/newsletters and sign up for the brand new Eye on Northwest Politics newsletter. Every Tuesday, you'll get an in-depth look at the issues and the candidates and the leaders in legislation that matter to you, delivered right to your inbox from your local election headquarters. That's coin.com/newsletters.